Ever get a job from your wife that's so simple, it actually scares you? Like, the easier it is, the more you know you're gonna ruin your entire marriage with it. That's how it starts. My wife walks in, looks at me with this confidence I definitely did not earn, and says, "Nate, I'm giving you one job." One job. She says it slow, like she's talking who just woke up from a medically induced coma. And I'm already nervous because when she says on job, she means you're gonna mess up something I didn't even tell you about. So she tells me what she wants, something extremely basic, something any adult with a functioning brain could do. And I'm standing there nodding like, yeah, totally. I got it, and I did now to have it. I repeated it back to her, and she gave me that look like she heard every word, and somehow none of it matched the thing she actually said. That's when I knew this was going to end badly. You shouldn't feel like you're taking a final exam in your own home, but that's marriage. I leave the house with confidence I did not earn. I feel like a hero starting a mission. I'm smiling, walking tall, like, I'm gonna nail this. I'm gonna make her proud. I get to the store, open the door, and instantly forget every detail. I don't remember colors, brands, or what category this thing belongs to. I don't even remember why I'm alive. Walking around the aisles like a lost child at Disney World, I start guessing. And when you guess in marriage, you lose. I'm trying to look like I know what I'm doing, but inside, my brain is shutting down. I'm Googling descriptions like, that blue thing with the thing on top. Google's like, do you mean depression? I ask an employee for help. Even he's like, man, I don't think that's a thing. I get so stressed I grab the item I think is correct. And I know it's not correct, but once a husband commits, he commits all the way to being wrong. I walk into the house holding the bag like it's the Olympic torch. My wife's face drops immediately. She hasn't even opened the bag yet. She just senses the wrongness. She pulls the item out slow, like she's checking a bomb, and says, "What is this?" And now I'm panicking. I'm trying to explain my choices. Every sentence makes me sound dumber. I'm like, well, I thought because it was blue and you're blue sometimes, and she cuts me off because she can't watch me lose more IQ points in real time. Somehow, not only is it wrong, I made the entire situation worse. She now has to fix more problems than the one she started with. One job multiplied. And that's when I learned something important. Marriage is basically a group project where your wife does everything correctly. You're the guy the teacher assigned so you wouldn't feel left out. She keeps trusting me with jobs, and every time, she shouldn't. But you know what? Keep trying. I'll mess it up every time. Confidently, because that's love. Because after all these years, she's too far in to start over now. Always says the funniest part of marriage is how something unbelievably simple can feel like a life or death assignment. That feeling hits him the moment his wife says, "Nate, giving you one job." He knows right away this isn't just a job, this is a test. And the smaller the task is, the more dangerous it becomes. Something about a simple chore carries this quiet pressure, like the universe is whispering, this is where it all falls apart. Nate tries to stand there like a normal, functioning adult, but internally he's spiraling because he has learned through years of experience that a husband can mess up a task so basic that even babies who can't walk yet would somehow do it better. He wants to appear confident, so he does that little nod husbands do, the one that says, I absolutely heard nothing. I'm gonna pretend I did because I want peace. He notices how his wife talks slowly when she gives him these jobs, like she's explaining how gravity works. That slow tone is terrifying because it means she believes this is still within his capabilities. It's a strange, misplaced confidence, one he knows he hasn't earned. She'll say something like, I just need you to pick up the thing from the place. And the whole time he's thinking, that sounds easy, but somehow I know I'm about to ruin both our days. That's the hook of the whole situation. Why do the smallest tasks feel like traps? Why does one tiny job carry the emotional weight of a mortgage payment? He tries so hard not to look confused that he ends up looking even more confused. The real pressure starts when he realizes she is trusting him with this job. And trust is dangerous. Trust is how husbands get exposed. She'll look him right in the eyes with that gentle confidence. He instantly feels like she overestimated him by about 6 lifetimes. He wants to say, maybe we should start smaller. Give me something I can definitely do, like breathing or blinking. But instead, he stands up straight like he's about to be knighted, and he repeats the instructions to show her he's listening. That's when he sees the look all wives give when they know their husbands are about to completely misunderstand a very clear sentence. In that moment, they're smart. Nate already knows he's doomed because that look means she's preparing emotionally for the disaster she's about to witness. He tries to reassure her anyway, smiling like a very unsure man trying to convince the dentist he flosses. This is where the comedic tension lies. His wife believes in him, and he desperately wishes she wouldn't. Because the second she believes in him, he messes everything up, and the audience knows it. They can feel the catastrophe coming. That's what makes the story land. This quiet, slow building panic wrapped in a husband's desperate attempt to look competent. It's the perfect mix of innocence, confidence, and immediate regret. This one job, so tiny it should not even be a job, becomes the opening doorway to chaos, confusion, and the exact kind of disaster Nate Bargatze is famous for telling. Tries his absolute best to understand the instructions because this is the moment where every husband's confidence gets tested. His wife explains the task slowly, clearly, and with the kind of precision you'd expect from someone defusing a bomb. And Nate, wanting so badly to look like a responsible adult, nods along like he's absorbing every syllable. But in reality, he's already forgetting the first part while she's still explaining the second. It's not his fault. His brain just panics under pressure. He tries to repeat the instructions back to her, hoping to prove he's on the right track, but the second he opens his mouth, it comes out wrong, not slightly wrong, wildly wrong. Like he somehow heard a completely different conversation happening in another house on another planet. Smart, his wife gives him that expression, all wives have mastered the quiet stare of disappointment mixed with gentle fear. It's the look that says, how did he misunderstand this so badly? How is he still alive? That look hits harder than any words. Nate can feel it. Feels like a student failing a quiz before he even sees the questions. And the funniest part is smart. He genuinely thinks he's trying. He really believes he's listening. But there's something about a wife giving instructions that triggers a husband's brain to enter airplane mode. He tries to focus. He really does. He repeats the steps again, more slowly this time, trying to match her tone so she thinks he's processing. But instead of reassuring her, it only confirms her fear that he's not hearing the same information. The tension is hilarious because you can see she wants to trust him. And he wants her to trust him, but both of them know that trust is about to end in disappointment. He keeps adjusting his stance, scratching his head, overthinking every detail, trying to look like a man deeply committed to his mission, even though his mind is already drifting into chaos. And the audience feels it, that comedic pressure building as he stares at her like she just explained quantum physics. There's always a moment where his wife sighs, not loudly, but just enough to let the universe know she's reconsidering marriage. She tries to simplify the instructions even more, but this somehow makes Nate more confused. She thinks she's helping. He thinks she's introducing new complications. She'll say something like, "It's by the thing next to the other thing." And he nods confidently, while internally thinking, she just canceled the one detail. I understood that. This is where the hook tightens. Feel Nate trying to hold on to one piece of information, just vie one, but it slips away every time. He's nodding, smiling, pretending to take mental notes while his inner voice screams for help. He wants to tell her, "Look, I love you, but we need a whiteboard or a PowerPoint or maybe a support group." But instead, he just goes with the classic husband response. "Yeah, I got it." He doesn't got it. Everyone knows he doesn't got it. That's the heart of the moment. The audience sees the disaster forming long before Nate does. It's this slow motion collapse of confidence, wrapped in politeness, love, pure confusion that makes the entire scene funnier the longer it goes. Nate walks out of the house with the kind of confidence that only comes from pretending you know what you're doing. And for the first 30 seconds, it actually feels like he does. He's got the baggy shirt, slow, walk stride of a man on a mission, chest slightly puffed, like he's carrying the Olympic torch of domestic competence. He tells himself, "This is it. Today I succeed. Today I prove I can handle a simple task without catastrophic consequences." But confidence, as Nate has painfully learned over the years, is very fragile, especially when it involves a task his wife believes he can accomplish. The moment he steps out of the door, reality hits like a cold splash of water, and the confidence starts to leak away, slowly, one doubt at a time. The store is deceptively simple, yet every aisle is a trap. Nate tries to locate the item, and suddenly nothing makes sense anymore. He forgot the brand name, the color, the size, and even the general category it belongs to. In his mind, the instructions his wife gave have morphed into an abstract puzzle. Blue thing with a thing on top is now a riddle worthy of a detective show, and Nate is the hapless amateur. He walks past dozens of shelves, pretending to browse, but each glance at the rows of products only deepens the panic. He starts to second guess every choice, imagining the disaster waiting for him back at home. He feels the invisible judgment of all other shoppers who, for some reason, seem to understand exactly what they're doing. Nate's internal monologue spirals further. He tries to remember the simplest details, rehearsing them in his head like he's reciting lines for a play he doesn't understand. He asks himself questions he shouldn't ask a normal human being, like, did she mean this shade of blue or that shade of blue? Does size matter? What is size, even in this context? These questions multiply faster than they can be answered, and before long, he's convinced he has no idea how any of this works. He even starts using his phone as a lifeline, Googling vague descriptions in a desperate hope that technology will rescue him. But technology, like his own logic, fails spectacularly, and now he is wandering with the panicked determination of a man lost in a corn maze. convinced that every wrong turn is the end of the world. The audience can imagine him pacing the aisles, holding the wrong items, trying to appear confident while slowly realizing he's going to fail spectacularly. He engages with employees, asking questions that make less and less sense as the anxiety grows, until the employee's blank stare perfectly mirrors his internal confusion. Nate becomes acutely aware of how simple this should be, how straightforward and how utterly impossible it has become for him. Each step, each decision, each wrong item he grabs heightens the tension and the humor, because the audience knows what's coming even before he does. By the time he reaches the checkout counter, he is both exhausted and proud, carrying items he is almost certain are incorrect, somehow managing to convince himself that maybe, just maybe, he's succeeded. The walk back to the car is a slow, deliberate march, punctuated by brief moments of self-reassurance and quiet panic, where he whispers to himself, it's fine, she'll like it, she'll definitely like it. That fragile hope, combined with the lingering dread of inevitable failure, creates the perfect setup for the comedic explosion waiting for him at home. The hooks in this moment are the audience's anticipation, his relatable panic, the absurdity of a simple chore transforming into an epic, slow motion disaster that only Nate Bargatze could narrate with such understated charm. Has learned over the years that the simplest tasks have a mysterious way of evolving into full-blown adventures. This particular job is no exception. What should have taken 5 minutes stretches into an epic saga, the kind of saga where logic and common sense are left at the door and panic quietly sneaks in to take over. Begins overthinking every tiny decision, convinced that the right choice is hiding somewhere between aisle 3 and the discounted clearance section. Every option he considers is weighed with the seriousness of a Supreme Court decision, even though the stakes are really just a household chore. He wonders if there's some invisible standard he's failing to meet, some secret rule about husband duties he never got the memo for, and each new thought pulls him further into the spiral. As he examines each product, he becomes acutely aware that any choice could potentially be catastrophic. He picks up one item, another, comparing them with meticulous care that no sane person would consider necessary. His mind starts inventing excuses, rationalizations, and alternative scenarios. He wonders if the color matters, if the size matters, if he should consult the internet or ask a stranger. Bargatze's humor lies in how ordinary these thoughts are. Everyone has overanalyzed a simple decision in life, but he presents it in such a way that the audience sees the absurdity magnified, slow and deliberate, like a man defusing a bomb that isn't actually dangerous. He interacts with the store employees, attempting to ask questions that might clarify things, only to realize that his questions don't make sense. "Excuse me," he asks cautiously, "do you have the blue thing with the thing on top?" The employee gives him a blank stare. In that pause, Nate knows he has officially lost control of the mission. The audience laughs because they can see him teetering between hope and helplessness, recognizing the universal truth are perfectly capable of making any simple task exponentially harder. Each wrong answer, each confused step propels him further into the comedic trap, and Nate amplifies this tension with his understated, slow burn delivery, letting the awkwardness linger until the audience can't help but chuckle at the inevitability of disaster. Nate tries to regain control by convincing himself that maybe he's close enough. He grabs a random product, whispers reassurances to himself, and heads toward the checkout counter. But each step is punctuated by doubt, internal monologues, fleeting moments of panic. He checks the item again, worries about size, shape, color, and function, considers going back to start over, only to realize that starting over would be worse. The hooks here are the growing tension and the audience's anticipation. They know he is making it worse with each decision. They watch, captivated, as he continues with heroic determination. By the time he leaves the store, he is juggling the items with a mixture of pride and terror, convinced that failure is imminent, but clinging to the faint hope that his wife might not notice. Every glance at the bag reminds him that the tiniest misstep could unravel the whole day. The humor comes from how Nate presents this ordinary disaster with calm absurdity, letting the audience live the panic in slow motion. The combination of relatable fear, exaggerated overthinking, and understated delivery keeps the story professional, engaging, packed with comedic hooks that make even a simple shopping trip feel like an epic, unforgettable misadventure. Nate Bargatze knows the moment of truth in any domestic adventure comes when he walks back through the door, holding what he hopes is the right item with a fragile sense of pride and an equally fragile sense of reality. He imagines the triumphant scenario: his wife sees the item, smiles, maybe even claps, and life continues smoothly. But of course, reality does not cooperate. The instant she glances at what he is holding, her expression changes. It's subtle at first, just a twitch of the eyebrow, but Nate immediately recognizes the universal language of disappointment. A silent, slow burn assessment that says, you had one job, and somehow you managed to make it impossible. He knows deep in his gut that whatever explanation he has planned is already obsolete. The hooks in this moment are immediate. The audience is on edge with him, anticipating disaster, already laughing because they can sense what he hasn't yet fully realized. He hands her the item, trying to maintain that casual confidence, like, yeah, I did this. But her hands reach for it slowly, and each second feels like is watching a ticking time bomb. He starts running through his mental defense strategy, the kind of internal monologue only a desperate husband could understand. Maybe she won't notice. Maybe she'll assume it's exactly right. Maybe she's just waiting for me to speak first, and then she opens it, examines it, and that's when the panic really sets in. She doesn't even raise her voice. She just stares. And that stare, that precise combination of disbelief and suppressed frustration communicates more than words ever could. Nate's humor comes from acknowledging this tension and drawing it out slowly, letting the audience savor every microsecond of his helplessness. He tries to explain, to rationalize his choices. The more he speaks, the less sense he makes. His sentences begin with, well, I thought, and end in convoluted justifications that sound more like abstract philosophical theories than explanations for a simple household task. The audience recognizes the pattern immediately. He is digging a hole, but he is so charmingly oblivious that the act itself becomes the comedy. Every explanation he offers compounds the disaster. Every word is a misstep, and the anticipation of failure creates this exquisite tension that Nate exploits with his understated delivery. The real hook in this scene is the relatability. Everyone has experienced the slow, creeping realization that they have screwed up something trivial in front of someone who expected perfection. Nate's genius is turning that universal anxiety into humor without ever feeling forced or exaggerated. He doesn't yell, doesn't panic in a cartoonish way. He delivers it with calm bewilderment, allowing the absurdity to reveal itself naturally. The audience feels both his dread and his innocence simultaneously, which creates that unique, slow, burning laugh only Nate can elicit. By the time the full realization hits that he hasn't just failed, he's made additional problems. Nate's body, language, pacing, and hesitant speech all emphasize the comedy. Every small movement, every pause, every attempt to recover draws the audience further into the experience. He's learned over countless repeated scenarios that this pattern repeats itself: small task, overconfidence, subtle panic, misguided execution, the silent judgment of his wife. The beauty of it, and the hook that keeps audiences engaged, is how he delivers these familiar moments with meticulous timing and understated charm, turning everyday failure into a hilarious, relatable, and painfully accurate storytelling performance. Nate always reflects on these domestic disasters with a quiet, self-aware humor, the kind that makes the audience immediately relate to his misadventures. After the catastrophic return from the store, after the moment his wife stares at him with that perfect mixture of disbelief and disappointment, he takes a deep breath and starts to make sense of it all, or at least tries to. He realizes that marriage, at its core, is a lifelong group project, and he is the weakest, most overconfident member assigned to tasks he will inevitably ruin. There's something both humbling and funny about acknowledging that no matter how much he wants to be competent, the universe seems determined to remind him that his contributions are often unnecessary, sometimes incorrect, and always entertaining to watch. The hooks here are immediate. Everyone watching can feel that blend of guilt and comedy, recognizing themselves in his slow burn, panic, and self-deprecation. He imagines his wife calmly stepping in to correct what he's done, silently taking over the mess he has created. Nate is left there trying to reconcile his intentions with his results. He wants to feel proud, but he also knows that his good intentions don't count for much in the face of a task poorly executed. He jokes to himself about how he approaches every assignment with the confidence of a man who hasn't learned from 30 years of repeated failures, and that absurdity is exactly what makes the story land. The audience is hooked because they see the pattern repeating in real time. Nate's overconfidence, slow realization, misguided execution, and the inevitable comedic fallout. He starts to make mental notes for next time, though he knows deep down that next time will be exactly the same. There's a sort of charming resignation in how he processes these situations. Jokes about how the more he tries to justify himself, the worse he sounds. Yet he will continue to volunteer for small tasks because he wants to be helpful, or at least look helpful. This universal struggle, the desire to do the right thing mixed with an inability to execute it properly, is what makes Nate's humor so engaging. The audience is drawn into that relatable chaos, laughing both at him and themselves, recognizing the daily comedy of life's simple challenges. He reflects on trust, realizing that his wife continues to give him jobs despite repeated failures. That trust is both a gift and a setup for inevitable comedy. The hooks in this moment are subtle but effective. The audience anticipates failure because of his track record, but they also feel warmth in his acknowledgement of her patience and his persistence. Examines his own flaws with honesty and understated charm, pointing out the ridiculousness of thinking he could ever handle even the simplest responsibilities flawlessly. The humor grows from his calm narration of panic, his self-deprecating observations, the absurd contrast between intention and outcome. Nate often notes that this pattern of overconfidence, subtle panic, mistaken execution, and the gentle, inevitable correction from his wife is the rhythm of his life. It's what keeps the marriage alive, what keeps the audience laughing, and what keeps him humble. Every failed task is both a comedic setup and a reflection on human nature, showing that even in failure, there is love, persistence, endless material for storytelling. The charm lies in the delivery, understated, slow, thoughtful, and perfectly timed, so that even a story about picking up the wrong item becomes an epic narrative of anticipation, panic, and humor. By the time he reflects fully, he sees the pattern for what it is: a slow, deliberate dance of trust, failure, and perseverance. Knows he'll make the same mistakes tomorrow, and the day after, probably the day after that, but that is what makes life funny. The audience hangs on every word, hooked by the mix of relatable panic, understated absurdity, and the charm of a man who keeps trying despite knowing he will fail. The storytelling here is professional, engaging, and full of hooks, drawing the audience into the mundane chaos of everyday life while turning simple failures into comedy gold. That's the thing about marriage. You keep trying, even when you know you're about to fail spectacularly. You keep volunteering for the small jobs, the tiny tasks, because you love her, and maybe because you like living dangerously. Every time I mess up, she fixes it quietly, patiently, and without making me feel like a total disaster most of the time. And somehow, despite all the failures, all the wrong choices, and all the moments where I think, yep, this is it, she's done with me, she keeps trusting me. And that's the magic. That's what makes it funny. That's what makes it worth it. Because even when I make it worse, she's still there. And somehow, that's the greatest punchline of all.